Welcome back to The Explainer, folks. Today we're diving into something, well, a bit different. Step out of the light for a second and let your eyes adjust to the shadows. We are unpacking a genuinely fascinating piece of modern folklore. It's a story about a haunting. Actually, scratch that. It's more about a romance cut tragically short. It's set against this incredibly dark, highly detailed cinematic atmosphere in an isolated place known as the Village of Davegar. We're looking at the mystery of an unfinished love, which is a narrative that proves the most haunting things aren't always what they seem. So let's step into the quiet, unsettling dark together. So picture this. What actually happens when you just want some peace and quiet, but you end up finding a ghost instead? Our story centers around a guy named Aryan. Now, Aryan is a writer, and like a lot of creatives, he's hit a massive wall. I mean, he's been struggling for months to finish his novel. He is totally burned out, just pushed right to the brink by the endless, suffocating noise of the city and those relentless calls from his publishers. It's that feeling of absolute mental exhaustion, you know? He realizes there's no way he can write another word in that environment. He needs to escape. He desperately needs silence. So he decides to ditch the chaotic city for a few weeks to find a sanctuary where he can finally hear his own thoughts. Okay, let's dive into this, because his friend Raghav makes this huge, bold promise. He tells Aryan, you'll find nothing but peace there, basically inviting him to crash at his family's ancestral home in the super quiet, incredibly remote village of Devgar. And honestly, it sounds like the absolute perfect retreat. But here's the chilling reality of that promise. When Aryan rolls up the next morning, he finds that this old, two-story house stands completely alone near the edge of the village. And directly across the dirt road from his supposedly peaceful sanctuary sits another ancient house. And that house, it looks totally, completely abandoned. Section 1. The Window in Devgar. A supernatural setup. Right, so on Aryan's very first night in this isolated house, he decides to stand by his window just to enjoy the cool night breeze. But as he's looking out into the pitch black, the window of that abandoned house across the road slowly creaks open. And standing right there is a beautiful young woman, dressed vividly in a red sari and decked out in traditional jewelry. But the text notes a really specific detail here. She looks incredibly sad. It's this profound melancholy, like she's been waiting for someone for a very, very long time. Now, Aryan initially just brushes it off, right? He assumes her husband is simply out of town or something. But then it happens the exact same way the next night. And the night after that, every single night at the exact same hour, she appears like clockwork at that very same window. Finally, Aryan's curiosity totally gets the better of him. I mean, you can't blame the guy. He calls out across the darkness, politely introducing himself. But instead of a friendly, neighborly wave, he is met with fierce hostility. She immediately frowns and snaps at him, literally saying, "How dare you speak to a married woman at this hour?" She is fiercely protective of her boundaries, warns him of her husband's wrath, and then just forcefully slams the window shut. It is a jarring rejection. Aryan is thoroughly embarrassed by the whole thing and decides, yep, I am absolutely never bothering this woman again. Let's move to Section 2 and see how this builds. The Ghostly Soldier, a chilling encounter. So several days pass after that pretty intense rejection, and then the woman appears at the window once more. But this time, her entire vibe has changed. She offers this soft smile and actually apologizes for her previous behavior. Aryan accepts, of course, but he just has to ask, why on earth does she stand there every single night dressed up in traditional attire? And that is when her eyes well up with tears, and she delivers this totally spine-chilling revelation. She tells Aryan her husband was a soldier. 2 months ago, she received the devastating news that he had died in the war. But, and this is where Aryan's blood literally runs cold, she claims that despite his death, every single night, his ghost returns to that house to see her. And before Aryan can even process the fact that this woman honestly believes she's chatting with a phantom, the supernatural seemingly manifests right in front of his eyes. From deep inside that dark, abandoned room, Aryan hears these heavy, deliberate footsteps. A deep, echoing voice scolds the woman, saying, "I've told you many times, don't leave the window open." And then a man in an army uniform steps right out of the shadows and up to the window. His face is pale under the moonlight, and he just stares directly at Aryan with these cold, completely emotionless eyes. The soldier then abruptly slams the window shut, leaving Aryan standing there, completely stunned in the dark. You can only imagine the absolute terror. Aryan barely sleeps a wink that night. He's trapped in this isolated village, totally convinced he just made eye contact with a vengeful spirit. But a writer's curiosity is a really powerful thing. By morning, he comes up with this brave, albeit terrifying, step-by-step plan. First, wait for the absolute safety of daylight. Second, force himself to walk across that dirt road. And third, knock on the heavy door of that abandoned house. He is determined to uncover the actual truth of what he just witnessed. So he knocks. The heavy door slowly creaks open. And standing right there in the doorway, in broad daylight, is the exact same soldier he saw the night before. The sheer, overwhelming fear of coming face to face with what he wholeheartedly believes is a ghost is simply too much. Arian's vision just goes black and he completely faints right there on the doorstep. Which brings us to the ultimate question of this explainer. Who or what is actually haunting this house? Section 3. The tragic twist. A fatal mistake. Now this is exactly where the narrative shifts from a supernatural horror story into a profoundly human tragedy. When Arian finally opens his eyes, he's not in some ghostly underworld. He's sitting inside the house, and the soldier is calmly handing him a glass of water, gently telling him, "Don't be afraid, I'm not a ghost. My name is Vikram." And this brilliantly illustrates the true mechanics of what actually happened. Vikram tells Arian the whole story. Before returning from military duty, Vikram wanted to surprise his wife, Nandini. As a practical joke, he had a close friend named Ajay go ahead and tell Nandini that Vikram had been killed in battle. But this seemingly harmless joke triggered a catastrophic chain of events. The sheer shock of the fake news caused Nandini to suffer a massive, fatal heart attack before anyone could even say, "It's a prank." By the time Vikram finally arrived home, it was too late. Nandini was dead. It is a totally devastating realization. Vikram didn't die in the war, he survived, but he lost the absolute love of his life because of a single, terrible, misguided mistake. I mean, the weight of that guilt, it's unimaginable. And this is the core of the haunting right here. It's not some ghost seeking revenge, it is two souls completely trapped by a grief that stems from one fatal miscommunication. So the crucial point is how these two realities are forced to interact within that dark house. On one side, you have Nandini's reality. Since the day she died, every single night at the exact same hour, Nandini's spirit returns to the room where she spent her final moments. She died fully believing her husband was killed in action, so her ghost is perpetually waiting for the ghost of her husband. On the flip side, you have Vikram's reality. Vikram is a living, breathing man. He is very much alive. But to comfort the confused, grieving spirit of his dead wife, he is pretending to be a ghost. Section 4. Love Beyond Death. Heartbreaking Devotion. Now, what's really interesting and honestly just absolutely heartbreaking about this is the absolute devotion captured in his words. Vikram, literally with tears in his eyes, explains his new reality to Arian. He resigned his commission. He gave up his entire life in the outside world. Now, as a living man, he puts on his old military uniform every single night to go and meet his wife's ghost at that window. He enacts this bizarre, tragic play night after night because he simply cannot bear the thought of letting the woman he loves spend eternity waiting in the dark alone. He's literally sacrificing his own living years to comfort her afterlife. Listening to this agonizing confession, Arian is left completely speechless. Honestly, there are just no words to offer a man carrying that kind of burden. Before leaving the house, Arian makes a solemn promise to Vikram. He vows that he will never, ever reveal this secret to anyone in the village. He'll let Vikram and Nandini keep their private, ghostly routine. And, true to his word, Arian packs his things up that very same evening and completely abandons his peaceful retreat, heading straight back to the chaotic noise of the city. The story leaves us with this incredibly beautiful summary. Years pass after that trip to Devgar, but the narrator notes that whenever a full moon lights up the night sky, his mind always drifts right back to that lonely window in the village. He remembers the living soldier and the ghostly bride. It stands in his memory as a profound testament to human devotion, a place where love stubbornly, tragically refused to die, surviving even after death itself had separated them. As we close out this explainer, I really want to leave you with a lingering thought. Vikram gave up his future, his career, and his grip on normal reality to live as a phantom for his departed wife. It forces us to look at the dark, emotional weight of grief, the terrifying, unintended consequences of our everyday actions, and the absolute limits of devotion. So I ask you, how far would you go, and what would you sacrifice to comfort a love that has already passed on? It's a haunting question from a beautifully tragic story. Keep that in mind next time you look out a window into the quiet dark.